What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm super excited to have this next guest on for a very particular reason. Him and I agree on a lot of things. We have very similar ways of looking at the world, and I think it was just serendipitous. It was, I'll say, God's plan for us to run into each other or slightly past each other in DC when we met at the Blexit event. So I'm really honored and just excited to talk to this next person. Ladies and gentlemen, Jean Joseph Boni, thank you so much for being with us, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Like you said, we ran up into like in December. Well, no, not December. Was it like
It
September
was
or
like
something like
March or
that?
something. It was a while ago
We
at
like
this
for
point.
the Blacks in March. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you say, we agree on a lot of things, and when it comes to Christian
Hmm.
apologetics, it's all that matters at this point because we are dealing with a lot of things that when you look into the Bible, you can see that all those things are being predicted. So
Yeah. So
what
I
we
I
should do
do want to
now.
bring up that you're writing a book about all of the stuff that you're talking about now, stuff that we're going to talk about. It's called, or you wrote it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
already out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
From the
So
Tower of
here's
Babel to One World Government.
government. Yeah. So it's pretty much about globalism
Mm,
in a nutshell. So, and I dive into like to explain how the people that built the Tower of Babel had the same kind of mindset,
hmm.
trying to overcome God, trying to be more than God. That's why they're trying to like go up and, say, hey, look, we can build that tower and probably we're gonna reach heaven to prove God that we better than him,
Right.
pretty much. So that's exactly what's going on with globalism. Those people like always want to be united with the simple and the only purpose of challenging God, pretty much.
Right.
And
Now,
when you look at it,
do you think that it's intentional do you think that they're conscious of that, or do you think it's like a subconscious thing that they're doing that?
so I think it's both ways, right? I think there's actual people that actually run the whole thing. They know exactly what they're doing, and there's people who think that whatever they're doing sounds good. They don't realize, the big impact in the long term. So they just play along without knowing exactly what they're
And
doing.
those would be people that kind of just kind of follow politics a little bit, not too much,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah,
just like,
because
okay, Black Lives Matter,
mhm,
and they'll throw up the
yeah,
fist
exactly.
because it's what's
Because
popular.
when exactly because when you talk about like, oh, let's get all together, it doesn't sound like a bad thing
Right.
and such, right? But when you look at the bigger picture, that's exactly what the devil the devil wants.
Exactly. And us as
So
Christians, I think you'll agree with me, we're supposed to be kind of countercultural, right? We're not supposed to be doing the things that unite the world, essentially. We
nope.
our flesh is just temporary. We're spiritual beings and we're looking at the perspective of eternity. So I think it's really interesting the way politics and Christianity interact and they intersect because you have a lot of people left and right that are arguing over how to bring a utopia here to us now today, how to make this world better now today. But it's interesting that Christians don't have that perspective. Our perspective is eternity, right? It's eternal. It's
Hmm.
eternity with God. And so when we put when we put politics into that picture, it's more so we're getting engaged in politics so that we can touch the hearts of people and turn them towards Christ. Would you agree with
Yep.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, whether you vote red or blue, at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, what kind of policies are you supporting, and how that policy fits in God's plan. That's the only thing you got to ask yourself, because no matter what you do, no matter what you think your side is better than the other side, but you always got to look down to the like foundation. Ask yourself like, oh, I want, we all for pro-life on the conservative side, and you look in the Bible. I mean, it's proven. Jesus was for life. That's why he came down and gave his life.
So
And those
this is
kind
the
of things.
question that I've been wanting to ask you since we
Mhm.
first talked and we said that you'd be on the podcast. These liberal arguments, right? You brought up pro life, so I'll use that as a thing. Pro choice arguments. There are Christians that genuinely believe in pro choice. What are the, I guess, the beliefs that they have or the arguments that they have that validate that biblically? Where do you understand them at all?
Um, I think people are just like um misled by certain public figures, and I want to mention one now senator
Right.
in Georgia. That's one of them people. So like, and it's a lot more happen. It happens a lot more in the black
Mm.
community because this guy is like a black preacher, and the way his congregation look at him, it's like pretty much like a semi god. You want to say that. So they're willing to listen to whatever he says,
Yeah,
right?
and
If he
for those
says,
that don't know, Warnock is the pastor that tweeted that he is a pro-choice pastor, and that tweet went kind of
"Yep,
viral. I'm sorry, continue.
yep, yep." So like someone like him, even people don't necessarily like align with what he said, but the fact that they see him as like a preacher, whatever, they have respect for him. So they're just gonna get in the bandwagon
Mm.
just because of that. That's pretty, sad that some communities, like especially black communities, I see that a lot. So they're just gonna like believe what he says because he's a preacher.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the interesting part. There's the level of influence that's happening right now where, with social media and everything, every single person kind of has had their circle of influence become that much bigger depending on who they are. And a preacher like Warnock, I believe is his name, he's become kind of a figurehead of Christians who don't necessarily want to believe conservative politics because orange man bad, they just don't want to agree with Trump about anything. I do think that, and you can tell me what you think about this. I'd love to hear your take on it. There are certain scriptures that frequently get misquoted by Christians who look to the left of politics, right? For one of them, for example, is I think it's in the book of Acts where the church wants to give all of their money to the apostles' feet, and so the apostle can take that money and redistribute it among the church. A lot of people on the left take that verse to mean socialism or eventually communism. How would you answer somebody that says, oh well, socialism's in the Bible, just look at Acts, look at that verse?
Yeah, oh, that's that's very insane. Like I run to people like this, I'm like, so you telling me that, you know, the whole point for Jesus to come back, to come down on earth, for him to do ministry, all that his only goal was to feed people or to like care for people. Like you gotta ask yourself, like, what was the reason behind Jesus doing all those
Right.
things? It was to save the people, to get them from point A to point B. But you don't even understand, or you don't try to like lift up people. You just give them stuff that not gonna change much of their life. I was in Georgia and I took a picture, photo up in front of the church where Warnock preaches, and on the side of the road they had like homeless camp, and I see a bunch of people giving food and all that. I'm like, okay, this is fine, but how are you gonna lift them up and take them where they're from, and so they can live better?
Right.
Because you're gonna bring food here 20 years from now, it's not gonna change their life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so
And
true.
that's what.
Yeah, I think people who see, I won't even say people, but the idea of leftist Christianity is very short-sighted when it comes to the timeline that it's expanding, right? So this idea that socialism is acceptable because of what it says in Acts is a very short-sighted view of the eternity that God lives in. And so, like, the way I've responded to people that bring up that verse, which they bring up a lot because it's a very easy verse to say, hey, look, socialism is great. The way I respond to it is I say, yeah, all of them were not forced to be there. They were there because they wanted to be. This is the in between time between when Jesus was crucified and when Jesus resurrected, and they wanted to be there. That was their family with them, their spiritual family. They gave their money willingly and happily, and that is the complete opposite from the government telling you that you have to give X amount of dollars for them to decide what to do with it and distribute it. The government, the United States government, is not our apostle. The government is not God. And so I don't trust the government the same way I would have trusted an apostle back in biblical days. So that's usually the response that I give to people like that.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like you said, I think, like you said, people don't look into like the bigger picture, and that's exactly what the problem is because they only worry about, oh, let's give them food, let's give them that, but like, what's the point though? What's the point of fellowship? What's the point of ministry? To
Right.
save people. So if you don't save them, whatever you're doing is temporary. It's not going to change much of their life.
Did you see there was a tweet from a church here in New York which hurt my heart, but it says something to the effect of I'll bring it up actually, but it says something to the effect of um, Jesus or God cares more about um, free health care, feeding people, and making sure they have a place to live more than he does, accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior.
Hmm, hmm.
What's your take on that?
That was just stupid. Like this, this is what we call church now.
mm,
It's nothing but just bullcrap. Not
mm,
like whatever those people are saying, it's not even biblical to begin with. It's just like
right.
they just make up things because they feel a certain way or they're believing certain things. So they're trying so hard to like dig in the Bible and find things that will look like they can make a good argument with. So they run with it every time. So it's just stupid.
So let's do this. I kind of want to do this for the sake of my listeners that may not be very right leaning or, but they are Christians and they just don't know about politics. I'm going to pretend that I'm a lefty. I'm going to pretend that I'm a progressive Christian and I'm just going to shoot talking points at you. I'd love for you to just like pretty much engage with me and just tell me how I'm wrong.
Okay, all right, no problem.
All right, cool. So, I just don't feel like I feel like God would be able to respect a woman's decision to choose what she does with her body. That's my argument for being pro-choice. I just feel like God would not want us to, God is love. So why wouldn't He want us to um, be able to have a fulfilling life and not have a baby if we don't want one?
I'll say to that like God is love, but God is also just. So our God is a God of justice. So you can't really say, "Oh, love." I mean, that's what people say. It's like it's not 100% love. It's pretty much like 50-50. So you get 50% love, and the rest of it, you can get punished. Like there's so many instances in the Bible where people don't obey to God and they get killed. Like God literally killed them. That's what it
Yeah,
is. So you can't really say God is like all love and all that. And to, come back to your point, it's like the whole purpose of Christianity is life. I mean, without life, you and I wouldn't be here talking.
right.
So if you're Christian, you don't understand that concept. I'm sorry, like just stop going to church or like just do something else. That's what it is. But that's the foundation of Christianity. Jesus gave life, so all of us will be here, and even be worthy to breathe fresh air like we're doing now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if we don't understand that simple concept of law, I mean of life, then we mess out the whole thing.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. And scene. I do think that there's a lot of emotion that comes with the idea that God would want us to have abortions. God would want us to have socialism. God would want communism, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think the main way for a Christian to stay away from that? I guess you'd call it deception. What's the main way for Christians to get out of that? Let's say you're a Christian, you know people who are into that BLM, left leaning stuff. How do you get them away from that if you're a loving brother or sister in Christ?
Yeah, that's a little bit of pickle nowadays because people are so like radicalized. So all I say to people is just like actually go back in the Bible yourself. Not don't listen to your preacher or your friends. Just dive in yourself, and you're gonna realize that like a lot of things that you believe in, you know, they don't align with the Bible. So how you're not doing yourself a service if you don't, you know, support values that are like actually in the Bible. So because you know what, like what people do nowadays, they listen to one influencer or one public figure, and then make all those kind of things. You ask them like how you believe this or like where do you get that from? They're like, oh no, someone say that. So like
Right.
that's exactly and we are guilty of that at some point. And that's the number one thing I tell people: just go back. The Bible is available; it's open to everybody. Just dive in. And also, I think on the Bible app, you can no, just on Google, you can like Google a topic and like say in the Bible, you're gonna see like a bunch of verses, that like talks about that like specific topic. You can learn, like just learn yourself. Don't listen to mainstream media or preacher, this and that. Like at the end of the day, salvation is personal.
Yes.
So you gotta find it.
Yes. I think that's the big thing. And I want to break into this topic a little bit because I think it's relevant. The big thing that's been messy for me with the conservative, I'll say the patriot movement that's been happening over the past year or so, has been this weird collectivism that's happened accidentally, where we're praying on behalf of America, and we want to save the nation of America, and we want to do, we want America to be a Christian place where, like you said, salvation is completely individual. So we have to do, us as Christians, I believe, especially Christian leaders, need to do our due diligence to make sure that souls are saved, because we can't save a country. Like we can't save an entire nation. God can do that. God will resuscitate a nation if he sees it fit. But it's our job, as required by the gospel, to go out and give the Great Commission to individuals, not to a movement, not to a nation. Have you seen that at all? Am I making this up, or is this something that you've noticed as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've seen that a lot, and and a couple of years ago, I used to be like very active and doing all that America stuff, but um like I had to like realize that that's not exactly the point if you're Christian. There's
Right.
bigger things than that.
I've
And
been there too.
so like I'm like, let me just be my own here and actually doing like Lord's work, because that's all it comes down to. So whatever beliefs you you know support, and you like say, look, I know this is true, this is what I live by. um I mean, at the end of the day, God is the priority. So,
Yeah.
you can say, "Oh, we love America. We want America to be this and that," but also, what are you doing? Like, are you saving Are you saving lives? You know, that's the number one thing when you're a Christian. And when we get embedded into like the whole party line talking points, we miss out on the bigger picture that we're Christian. We're supposed to like, spread the gospel. And
Absolutely.
well, you can't really spread gospel with, you know, America and USA, whatever. I mean, it's some things that might work, but it's so small compared to the kingdom.
Yes, that's such a great way to put it. I do want to clarify too. Like, I have my MAGA hat right here. Like I'm not
Oh
ashamed
yeah,
of
I
my
got mine too.
conservative. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of my conservatism. The problem that I think that believers have sometimes is that we're very used to taking action on things that require huge amounts of faith, and so that leaves it very easy for people to fall into this like QAnon thing, and all of these like these little groups that start to pop up, and we slip and slip and slip until the point we realize, like, okay, we can't just take things on faith. The only thing we take on faith is the word of God. And I think it's really important that people who are Christians kind of take a moment to step back and reassess: am I making America, the idea of America, an idol? Am I making nationalism an idol over the gospel? It's become kind of something that I've had to reflect on, but there was a very specific reason that I was never led to, or like I never decided to make my name like conservative angel or something like that, because I wanted to continue to keep my identity. Like, God gave me my name, God gave me my identity, and that's something that I want to continue to press forward. Now, I would love to get your take on this, but I think that the ideas of conservatism, the ideas and values that are held there, not the people, the ideas are biblical ideas, and for the most part, and I do think that they deserve to be defended practically and spiritually. How do you feel about that?
Oh yeah. I'm on the same board with you. And um for so long I felt like people just like follow policies or just support policies and values without actually having actual foundation, right?
Yeah.
So you may believe in some things that sounds good, there's nothing wrong about it. But when someone asks you like why you believe this, you need to like give them a good answer with something like a biblical foundation for it.
Yeah.
And as a Christian, I had to step back and be like, look, I got to analyze all these policies and all these values and see if I can dig down in the Bible and find something that relates to that. If I can't find it, you know, I'm a conservative, but there's certain things I won't do, like this whole black conservative. I'm black, but I don't use that black conservative label on myself.
I've noticed that, and that's been one of
Yeah,
the reasons that I've wanted you as a guest for sure.
yeah. So I have a lot of black conservative friends, but I don't use that for my own because I feel like, you restrain yourself in this that little bubble. You can't see beyond that. That's a problem for a Christian.
Right.
So, and we talk a lot about those racial issues and all that.
Identity
So,
politics.
identity politics. So, like, it's not, we don't do a good service to ourselves when we use those kind of things to us. So, that's what I think about it.
For sure, and I think that's where the contradiction lies as far as the right goes. We criticize the left for using identity politics, and then we claim to be using identity politics like we're retaliating against them. Like, oh yeah, we're going to do the same thing back to you. But really, it just hurts the movement. Really, then it just pigeonholes you to be a black conservative. So you have to speak for all black people still. I have to speak for all Latinos still, and there's still no nuance in the conversations. And I think that it's really important that we make Christ the center of our identity, the center of our ideas, of our ideologies, and we move from there, because then at least we don't have the moral relativism argument that you see a lot on the right. It's like, oh, I think that America should be a free country. Why? Well, because our forefathers wanted that. Why does that matter? And you get to the point where it's like you go back and back until it's like, all right, well, it's because God wanted it that way. Or you don't have that and you don't believe in God, and then you have no substance for any of your arguments. You're just making a preference. You're giving an opinion. You can't actually say like, oh, I think America should be a free country if you have no moral framework for that. So it's really interesting to see that agnostic argument on the right. It's become something that I've wanted to start talking more about, because I genuinely, like, the right is my home. Like, they've taken me in. They love my content. Like, they're super welcoming. But I see a lot of like new age spirituality on the right, and that bothers me a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. And you said it all. Like, I think I already said that, but I'm gonna say that again. Um, Whatever beliefs you have, values, and all that, if it doesn't belong in the Bible, then it's false. That's what it is.
Right.
Like, keep it 100. So we got to do a better job at like those kind of things we talk about, because um we don't make those things up. Like, we don't make those things, you
Right.
know. So whatever comes from our human perspective, we have to also look back to the Bible, be like, hey, look, this is what I think, and does it align with the Bible? If not, then it's false. No matter
Right.
how good it sounds, it's false.
We have to
And
take every thought captive, right?
yeah, yeah, that's what we got to do. And a lot of people on the right, and I say this, and a lot of people might disagree with me, but I think people are more fiscally conservative than actually, you know, morally conservative,
Yes,
if I make sense.
absolutely.
So when it comes about tax and all that, it's great and everything, but when you talk about values, I don't see a lot of that,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah, it's
Right.
very rare. I mean, the Blexit event was one of the first events. I think it was the first event I ever went to, and they're an amazing organization. I'm not saying anything about them, but just in general, the conservatives that were there, for some reason, I expected it to be more like a church conference than an actual political rally.
I
And
mean, it gets like that sometimes. Sometimes.
yeah, well, I don't even mean like the program, right? Because everything that Blexit was involved in was great. The
Hmm.
speakers were great. Brandon Tatum opened in prayer. Like, all of these things are great. But after hours, when everybody's done, everybody's
Oh,
tired, you go, and for those of you that don't know, I'm giving you the scoop. I'm giving you the tea here. Like, everybody just goes to bars. You drink, you hang out, everybody's talking crap, they hook up, do whatever. And all of the politic or the conservative values just go out the window. And I think there's something to be said about keeping your testimony, right? It's something that I think is an exclusively Christian thing, because you don't necessarily see that in Islam, you don't see that in Judaism or New Age spirituality. Christians are the only ones held accountable for their social lives. And excuse me, and to me that's a very interesting thing, because when you're dealing with conservative values, that's something that's shared in most religions. But for some reason, if a Christian acts out or does something unchristian like, that gets recorded in people's brains.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean that's where I was like splitting up the the movement into like physical conservative and
Yeah,
actual morally conservative. And I mean it's unfortunate, and I I see things too, and I'm like, I don't know.
yeah,
That's why, on certain things when we always criticize the life, we got to be careful because
yeah.
you can't really speak about things that you kind of live in, you know,
That you're
like
struggling with.
you're struggling with, because that's not what God want us to do. So, and which bring back to the reason why I say just go by the Bible, go by scriptures, because if you're making an argument by the scriptures, you're never going to be wrong because the Bible is 100% truth, no lies. So you don't have to defend yourself too hard because I mean it's there, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah. I do.
if you
It's
use like your human perspective, you're gonna be wrong sometimes.
absolutely. Excuse me, seltzer water. I totally agree, man. I think that there's something interesting about moral absolutism, right? Like people kind of call Christians sometimes what do they call it? They think that we want to make the United States a theocracy, where like Christianity is the religion of the land. All laws are Christian. Everything is it's essentially medieval times with the Pope being the king or whatever. And that's really not and you can correct me if you have a different opinion, but that's really not our goal. Our goal is individual people and changing individual people's family culture, right? Their family lineage. We want to be able to break the chains that happen, that the generational curses that people have, and the only way to do that, in our opinion, I'm assuming, is Jesus, right? Is accepting Jesus. So how do you feel about what's happening on the cultural side? Because we have the political side, which is very like, we know what's happening on the right, we know what's happening on the left. The culture is the part that worries me, right? You have kids that are growing up now that don't know how to differentiate between their genders. They don't know what their sexuality is. They're being sexualized at an earlier and earlier age. What do you think is the root of that?
Like always, the devil, and he's doing a good job at this point. Like a lot of things that I've seen that I'll never thought in a second in my mind, will be
Yeah.
happening. We see everything now, and it's like and I feel like maybe it's me saying this, but I feel like America has a sexual god, as a sex god,
Mm,
and because you see that everywhere, you know, every TV, media, internet, like everywhere you go, sex, sex, sex.
that's
So I
interesting.
feel like this one thing, and if you read my book, I brushing a little bit, but there's one thing that with the foundation of America you got to look into, and also understand that funny fathers were not necessarily Christian. Some of them have different beliefs, and we get that wrong all the time. And
Yep.
I actually made a post a couple of days ago about that, and everybody came to it and be like, "Oh no, you're lying." They're all Christian. I'm like, look, I've done some research, and I can, and it's not even hidden. It's like right there in the open. You read the lines between the lines, you can understand those people didn't have like 100% faith in Christ,
Right.
or they didn't even like some of them didn't actually believe in Jesus. They will talk about like a God, but you gotta ask yourself what God exactly,
Yes.
because there's many gods out there. So you believe in God, but if you don't recognize Jesus as your savior, and he came and died and resurrected for your life, to give you life, if you don't recognize this, the God that you believe in, it's not the God I pray.
Yeah, it's the pillars of Christianity, right?
Yeah.
The beliefs that make you a Christian as opposed
Yeah.
to anything else.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like we've gotten to this place in the world where defining terms is like a problem now. Like
Yeah.
people say this is a Christian nation, and I'm like you're kind of ignorant,
Yeah.
because they believed in a creator God even maybe, but what was their doctrine? What did they actually believe? Jordan Peterson talks about. I don't believe Jordan Peterson's a Christian, but I think he brings up an idea. He says that he acts as if God exists, right? So he conducts himself the way he would if there is an actual God. I think that the founding fathers were similar. They acted as if there was a creator that was personal towards them, but that doesn't mean that they declared themselves, their lives given up to Christ, like they died to their flesh and they rose again with Christ, like and Christ lives in their heart. I don't think that they had the key tenets of Christianity. As much as it pains me to say it, I think Christians have become so so kind of hopeless in culture that they'll take anything. It's like, oh, that celebrity said God one time. We're gonna make them our new Instagram post, and bring him on Liberty University, and all these things. So I totally 100% agree. That's such a great point. The founding fathers are not necessarily Christians, and we have to conduct ourselves accordingly. This isn't supposed to be a Christian nation. This is supposed to be a nation that has as a foundational bedrock the
Yeah,
idea that there is a creator God.
yeah, yeah. And also, I don't know if you read Thomas Jefferson Bible. I mean, it's completely blasphemy what he did.
Really?
Yeah, like if you read that, like it pretty much is like talking about Jesus as some like basic human being.
Hmm.
And yeah, like I don't have the references that with me, but if you get a chance, go to it. I think it's probably gonna find it on the Congress Library or something like that, or probably online. But I've seen things like this, and it's not just him. Thomas Paine and even George Washington, like a bunch of people like that. You would think they were Christian, but they were actually struggling to find the right answer.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have the answers. They were like, "Well, we believe in a creator," and like a lot of them actually believe in nature's God.
Mm-hmm.
So, nature's God is referred to me as not the God I pray.
Right.
You
It's
know what I'm
it's
saying?
universalism,
Yeah.
is what it is.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So like a God from a human perspective, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them were actually saying, because I read a whole bunch of everybody's writing, pretty much, and they were referring to God as the personal thing they believe in.
Mm-hmm.
So God is not personal. The God is universal.
Mm-hmm.
So if you define God on your own terms, then you make yourself your own God.
Yes, which I think that is one of America's bigger idols for sure.
Hmm.
I think self has
Yeah.
become our generation's idol. My pastor always brings up the little catchphrase. It's iPhone. It's Facebook. It's like all these things that are self focused, and yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing to watch as humans tend to, I guess, establish themselves or care about themselves more than they care about their direct family members, even, or people in their community. I will say this. There's been a weird with the virus that shall not be mentioned, or else I'll get demonetized. There's been a weird return to community, in my opinion, and I think that's showing how essential community and values and honoring your family is, and how actually true it is in the context of not only Christianity but in the context of like a functioning society. And I'd love to get your take on this. I was talking about this with somebody earlier. Um, that very concept of society having to function from a place of individual family units and communities just makes Christianity the most viable religion. Like, there's no other religion that preaches that talks about that instructs you, women respect your husbands, men love your wives, like all of these things that are the bedrock of a healthy society are all the things that are in the Bible. Have you looked at it that way? Have you discovered that like for yourself?
Yeah, 100%. And like you say, back to community. And when the whole virus started, I felt like, it was kind of like a God's calling for Christians to like realize, at the end of the day, Christ is our priority.
Yeah.
We get busy with a whole bunch of nonsense that we probably don't need now in our life, and we get stuck home. You're bored. There's nothing to do. What do you do? Boom. Open your Bible. Read the scriptures, and I was able to like write my two books actually during that whole time because I was like, what am I doing? Like, I need to do something. You know, dive down and trying to understand exactly what God wants us to do when it comes to politics because for so long I was, doing my politics without actually foundation, you know.
Mm.
And I was kind of guilty of that, and I was like, you know what, all the things I was supporting was good, but I, I don't have any foundation for it, so I need to like be more solid when it comes to my views.
What made you
And
switch? What made you kind of have that revelation?
um, I think so like when the whole BLM thing started, and I was like, I had like a whole bunch of you know some people that I would call conservative, but they fell into like the whole trap of you know colors, like racism and all that. And I was surprised. I really thought they weren't like outspoken, but they
This
didn't
is
see it.
like around the time of like posting the black square kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
I was like, oh, and I didn't talk a lot of politics with these people, but I was expecting them not to go there. And I was like, because we've done a lot of things to the church and all that, and I was like, oh, bro, you did that too? Okay. So I was like, you know what? I need to like, set a time aside and, rethink to my whole things and realize that, I mean, God is the priority. So if you don't do, you don't base your views and your values and policies that you advocating for with the Bible, I mean, it's a lost cause. That's what it is. And coming back to your talking point here about the community, I feel like this is what guys want us to do, and we're so distracted. We've been so distracted with things, job and having the best car, the last iPhone, and all those things. At the end of the day, if you're stuck home, none of that matters. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna be bored too. Like, have you seen like the suicide rate? Like it's going so high,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's to tell
It's
you that
crazy.
this society we live in, we are just living in a very materialistic society. And when those things that we own doesn't have value and don't have value anymore, we're like, well, I mean, if you have like 2020 2020 car and you just bought it like 2 days ago, and you like, oh, flexing and all that, and whoa, boom, you know, you got to stay home for 2 months. I mean, your car's gonna devalue it, and you won't even have any benefit out of it.
Yeah,
You
you
see
can't
how
even
those
bring it
things
to
are?
the
Yeah,
club and show it off. Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Like if you stay home for 6 months, it's even bad because like by the time you drive it, you're gonna have like what, even like not even 10 miles on it, but it's still not gonna be as new because they're making cars every 6 months or 9 months.
Right.
So all those things have very um like they devalued it like pretty real fast. So and when you look into like those things, you're like, what exactly on earth that won't devalue like this? It's the Bible. It's written like 2,000 years ago, and it's still there. It still makes sense. So, and also another thing my friend was telling me about is like we need to go back to actual like on paper Bible
Yes.
because yeah, because one of those days, your Bible app won't work. Whatever you use
Or
on
it'll
your
get
like,
it'll get marked as hate speech.
yeah,
You won't be able
exactly.
to
Like,
download it. Yep.
look, and I did it. I bought like 5 Bibles, like in paper Bible. I bought like boom. When he told me, I'm like, you smart. I just bought it like five. But that's what I tell
Love
my
it.
friends, like, look, just buy them things because I mean, you see big tech, you see what they're doing. They can censor everything, and we're
Yep.
gonna be like left out.
Yep. Absolutely. That's the one thing that I think people are misunderstanding about Christianity. I remember having a little back and forth with somebody he's a brother in Christ. Like he's a Christian. He believes strongly Jesus is the only way. But I told him like Christianity, like we're supposed to be countercultural. We're not supposed to be in the mainstream. And he's like, it's a little extreme for you to say that Christians are not mainstream. It's the biggest religion in the world. And I'm like, no, it's not. Yeah, Islam is the biggest religion in the world. He's like, okay, well, it's still like really popular and is very well accepted. I'm like, let me ask you something. When's the last time you saw on a television show, movie, any kind of media, a strong Christian man as the center of the movie that does well? Ever? Have you ever seen that? Maybe The Passion of the Christ. Like maybe that was it. And I told them, I was like, Christianity is culturally dangerous. they do not want to let Christians into culture because they will change the culture given the chance. And so, I had a back and forth with him a lot. What's your opinion? Is Christianity mainstream, or is it something that's out on the outskirts of the culture?
Um, I wouldn't say it's mainstream. I mean, well, I'll say mainstream just because that pretty much all people have heard about Jesus at some point in their life, right?
Right.
That's the only reason I'll say it's mainstream because people have known, they know that Jesus was here and he died and raised and went up to heaven and is coming back for a second coming. No matter if
Hmm.
you don't believe or not, but at least you heard it, right?
You're
So
right.
and that's what makes it kind of mainstream. But on the other side, it's really not mainstream because I mean it's not acceptable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Let's
Like,
just take the very simple example of abstinence. Super unacceptable in society. Like you get looked at as a weirdo. You don't get
mhm,
friends. Like
mhm,
it's a very strange thing unless you're a Christian, in which case it's a
mhm.
perfectly normal thing, right?
Yep, yep.
So yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
Continue.
mean
I cut you
that's
off.
what it is, and like we see a lot of pushback from everybody on Christians. Like, you know, you can be good friend with someone that um pretty much is a Christian too, whatever. But whenever you go like 100% on scriptures and you tell them, look, this is what it is. You can't do this, you can't do that, and they're gonna think, oh, this guy is like too strict. I mean, duh,
He's
like
religious. Yeah,
like
yeah.
exactly. I mean, this is what it is. I mean, we have to be radical. Like Christian have to radicalize, and I'm not meaning any violence or anything, but
Right.
we have to be 100% by scriptures
Right.
because all this new age Christianity is gonna like mislead a lot of people, like millions, and if we don't pay attention to that. And
100%.
yeah, like that's why I tell people like, look, you know, do not make things up. Like if you're not sure about something, just go to the Bible, look it. Like don't just come up with like weird things. And those people like actually have 100% faith in whatever they're saying. It's like it's unbelievable. Like
You would think that you wouldn't have to tell people that, right?
I
Like
know.
don't just make up the Bible. Like don't just make up Christianity. Like look,
Yeah,
check out what it actually is.
I
That's
know.
what baffles me about the left is their reinterpretation of Christianity is like for a 2,000 years plus people, theologians, people who studied the Bible, atheists, non-atheists, have decided that this verse means this, and then the left comes along and says, actually, what it means is that there's a wrongful distribution of inequality, blah blah blah. Like, what are you word salad? What are you saying? This is what it means, and that disappearing of actual objective thought is really dangerous for the church, in particular for the church. So
Yeah.
I want to say this, man. I want to wind down a little bit, but I want you to kind of take the floor a little bit and just give us maybe a little overview of your book. Feel free to pitch it. Just give us the spiel. What's great about this book?
Okay, so I just want, Christians in particular to like always remember how to align the whole history Bible, the whole history of the Bible, and some events that happen, and how you align those events to what we're dealing with now. So, per se, globalism, that's a big topic out there, and we see. I mean, it's like right in front of us, and like a lot of things that we probably thought wouldn't be possible, but like you heard a lot of New World Order, New World Order. It's an actual thing. It's not a conspiracy. Like people still think it's conspiracy. I'm like, you gotta be crazy. It's happening now.
Now,
Like
what
you
what
see,
exactly do you mean by New World Order? For those of you, for the people that
so
might still be on the fence.
so New World Order is pretty much something that's always been there, pretty much to like unify nations, right?
Mhm.
And unify when the Bible mentions anything about unification of human beings, as if it doesn't fit into the Lord's plan, it's gonna be anti-God because in our own flesh we don't necessarily like do want to do things for God because
Right.
we sinners. So if you have a whole group of people with not a godly mindset, they're gonna mess it up. That's what it is. And you see UN has been very not effective in everything they do. Like everything they do, they do like a whole mess. because the intention behind the UN is to pretty much dominate the world. And when it comes to the Antichrist, they're just gonna hand it over to him. Be like, hey, look, we just prepared this, and hey, have it. And that's
Right,
the whole thing, on and on and on. And every time you heard, globalism, new world order, is to prepare the coming for Antichrist.
right,
And that's the biggest topic in my book. And you see a lot of things like and I dived into like those false gospel, because that's a very important thing nowadays. You know, the goal for that is just to make sure people don't actually get the right word of God, so they get misled. And with that being said, they're gonna end up, following the bandwagon. Universality, new world order, new world government, new world religion, even, like. And that's also another big thing I was talking about. I mentioned in my book. And you see people say coexist, right? And like, oh, let's all come together. We believe in the same God. Like, no, bro. Like, we don't.
right. I mean,
Like,
the simple example of that is, Islam says that God is not a father. Christianity says that God is. So both can't be true.
yeah. I mean, look, and I've been talking to a lot, and I have a lot of Muslim friends and everything, and I feel like the ones we call moderate, they're not Muslim. That's what it is.
Yeah,
If they go 100% by what is in the Quran, they're gonna slice your throat and my throat here. Like,
yeah,
they're gonna kill us now.
it's true. It's true.
And there's this one pastor in UK. Can't remember his name, but he was talking about how he was in India and preaching the gospel. Well, not India, but no, I think UK. And one of the Muslim guy was like, "Well, whenever we get Sharia law in the UK, I'll be the first one to kill you." Like, he actually said that to the guy.
Wow.
So you see that, like, you can't really tell me we believe in the same God with that. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
There's this guy I think you would enjoy so much. His name is Dore Love. Maybe you've seen him on YouTube.
I heard of him.
Dorre Love. He's pretty much a street preacher. He's an
Oh
evangelist,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and he's in Canada, so they have like speech laws in Canada. So
Hmm.
he's very careful, but he will literally just talk to a Muslim, talk to an atheist, talk to a gay, straight, whatever person, and he will just go back and forth with them, and everything that he says will just be based on the Bible, just based
Hmm.
on, just no deviating from that, no emotions, no anything. And he leaves people like speechless. They don't know how to interact with that because they've never seen it. And I'm
Yep,
fascinated by this guy's channel. Like, bless his ministry, man, because
yep.
he's so great at just saying, "Well, God says this about that," and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, show me where it is." And he goes, "Okay," and he'll bring it up, and he'll just be like, "Here, read it," and he'll have the person read it. And so, it's really interesting to see people like that.
Yeah,
But I'm
yeah.
sorry. Continue about your book.
Yeah, so and there's like a whole chapter dedicated to like the actual foundation of America.
Mm,
And in it I was talking about certain things that, people don't look into it, but there's like very dark side of the foundation, at least from the founding fathers, right? We don't that we talked about earlier, they were not Christians.
right.
They have their own views on Christianity, which wasn't, because I mean, here's the thing: if you believe in one thing and you live one thing out, like that's like that's not
Yeah.
gospel. Like, that's fake gospel.
Right.
And you see, like, a lot of religion have a little bit of Christianity, and they add a little bit of whatever they do. It's false. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what it is. And there's things that the Bible calls false religion, because they use a little bit of Christianity to mislead. And those people are actually inspired by the devil to
Hmm.
like be, hey, look, we are the same. So we're gonna use a little bit of that, put it here and add our little thing, and you can come here and pray with us. But
Right.
that's false.
Yeah. Clearest examples being, the Book of Mormon,
Oh,
which is added to
yeah.
the Bible.
Hmm.
Um, the Church of Latter Day Saints has their own book. Jehovah's Witnesses,
Yeah.
they have another book to add on to the Bible to say, oh no, you have to read this book in order to interpret the Bible properly. Anything that supplements the Bible distracts from the gospel and and doesn't allow for the true gospel to be read or heard.
Yep,
For sure, man.
100%. And I mean, that's exactly what, the Bible refer as false religion, because they use a little bit of truth and, make it up in their own beliefs. And we see that a lot. And even within the Christian crowd, now those how they call themselves, prosperity gospel, you know,
Hmm.
those Joel Austin and all them people. Like
Right.
those people are not Christians. They're
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they're like life gurus or something like that. Like
Yeah.
because
They're
that's
motivational
what it is,
speakers.
and like anybody can do that. You don't even have to be Christian to like talk about the things they're talking about. And I was in Houston, I think last year, and I was curious enough to be like, hey, let me just check it out. So I went to this church, and I was like, I could hardly tell how many times I could like tell like from top of my head how many times he referred to verses, Bible verses. It was pretty much like dude was speaking about things that he believed in without any like like
Yeah.
without any foundation. Like
Yeah.
say things, and I'm like, well, that sounds fine, but we're in a church. You don't have any reference. Like you're not God.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
you.
it's a very modern Christianity quote unquote thing where you read one verse and then you do 45 minutes of
Oh
talking
yeah.
about that verse and your opinion about it. Yeah, yeah.
No, like that's
Yeah.
just that's a mess. And a lot of times in the Bible, there's always one verse that refers to another verse into another verse into another, on and on and on.
Yep.
So I'm more comfortable people doing this than like just put one out there on the big screen and be like, hey, look, this is it, and I'm just gonna talk about it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah, man. Well, look, I could talk about this forever, bro. I honestly
yeah,
could. I'll have to have you back on,
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
after when you
definitely.
write your next book or even not.
Yeah, we definitely like I think we can talk about like the actual beliefs of funny fighters because I'm actually doing a lot of research on that, and probably next time we come in I have like a lot of reference to it, and to show people like we can say America's Christian country, but we got to be cautious about it
Right.
until we actually know what the funny fighters would believe in.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I would love that. I'd love to do
Yeah,
just like a whole episode with you about that in general,
yeah,
and
no problem.
also for you selfishly, you should write a book about that. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would read
I'm
that
looking into it. Yeah,
for sure, man.
yeah.
So, dude, I just want to thank you. We're pushing 45 minutes or so now.
Oh, okay.
Um, but man, I've been so excited to have this conversation with you. Is everything I expected. Where can people find you? Where can they reach out to you at? And where can they
All
buy your
right. So,
book?
oh yeah, my book is on Amazon, and title is you can just use my name and just type it in. You're gonna find it. But this is how it looks like. You're gonna find it. This ebook and also the physical copy. And I'm on Instagram at I am that leader, and that's pretty much. I'm also on Facebook for people who want to follow me. And yeah, that's pretty much about me. And when you go on Amazon, I have another book, my first book that I wrote, which is also same, thing, and it's actually back here, the Clash of Worldviews. So
Oh, great.
yeah, so I was pretty much inspired with that because I was pretty much using the Bible against whatever mainstream media or mainstream everything is saying. So like
Hmm.
how that there's two worldviews, there's one that belongs to God and one is anti-God. So there's no middle ground. Like, and that's
Right.
what we need to understand as Christians. So when you go there, you're gonna find both of them over there, and just feel free to
Awesome.
get yours.
Awesome, man. So you heard that. Make sure you go on Amazon, check out his book. That's Jean Joseph Boni. And, just make sure you guys like, subscribe. If you love these political interviews, if you love the topics that we're talking about, please just subscribe, share this with a friend, comment, let us know what you want to hear about, who you want me to interview. And the more you do that, the easier it'll be for me to continue to do these things. It takes a lot of work to put these things together. So obviously, we're super grateful for anybody that watches, for anybody that just takes a minute out of their day to listen to me babble. But thank you guys again, and thank you, Gene Joseph, for being with
Yeah, no
us.
problem.
I'm
No
about to
problem.
hit stop record. Just stick around.
All right.
All right, man. We're done. I'm just gonna make sure this